In 2008, with the 50th anniversary of Risk right around the corner, Hasbro released a new wave of Risk games. The marketing concept seemed to be that after 50 years, Risk was finally going to get an overhaul. Remember, this is Hasbro, the toy giant whose marketing department seems to have a bipolar condition. When Hasbro marketing is having one of their on days, they can make it seem there is rioting in the streets over the retirement of a Monopoly token. Seriously, the release of the cat token probably would have upstaged the second coming of Christ. Hasbro marketing seemed to be having one of their on days when they released the Risk Black Ops Edition. The Black Ops Edition was released to playtesters and the media to create some noise around the new re-release of Risk. The Black Ops Edition had an edgy black box wrapped with razor wire art and dog tags. The black military look continued inside the box as well. And all the pieces were cubed, giving it a kind of a weird Euro look. The hype machine was in full force. However, when the official commercialized version hit stores, the marketing had sobered considerably. The teenage angst styling and the Euro-flavored pieces were gone. We had color again and these damn arrow pieces. I mean, who at Hasbro thought the arrows was a good idea? Worse yet, Hasbro marketing was off their meds again. There was no mention that this was a reimagined version of Risk, which really confused mainstream customers who were just looking for a regular copy of Risk. To be fair, Hasbro did release the Onyx edition, which kept some of the Euro-flavored pieces and a revision of the board in a giant box. And overseas, Hasbro released another Risk game. This was a two-player sister game to the revised edition of Risk, called Risk Balance of Power. And probably because Hasbro marketing conducted a focus group with some Americans who won't buy anything unless America's in it. I like the arrows. Helps me remember who I'm supposed to attack next. And because of this, we don't get to have nice things. Risk Balance of Power was released everywhere else in the world except the US. So, as soon as I found out about it, I imported a copy for myself, and now we're going to learn how to play it. This is Harsh Rules, I'm Ben Harsh, and today we're going to learn how to play Risk Balance of Power. When you open Risk Balance of Power, this is what you find inside. I can't find the US on the map, I'm scared. All these countries have funny names. Why can't we just play Fortress America? Seriously, Hasbro, not all Americans are that way. We're at least as mature as the Canadians, and they got the game. Anyway, get your bits together. It's time to set up the game. In the first step, you're going to shuffle the deck of cards and deal out 9 territory cards. Flip the cards over so you can see the 9 different territories. Then you're going to place a city unit on each of these territories. Once you've placed the cities, put those cards in the discard pile. In the next step, you're going to take the 12 cardboard objectives, place them face down on the table, and shuffle them around. Choose 8 chevrons and flip them over to reveal the objective. Take the remaining 4 chevrons and put them back in the box. You're not going to need them for this game. Now take those chevrons and put them in the objectives section on the game board. In Revised Risk, the objectives is like a spin on the old secret mission cards. Each player also has a capital, so capital risk is also blended into this version. To win Risk Balance of Power, you need to either complete 3 of the objectives or eliminate your enemy. You need to do this while maintaining control of your capital. Another throwback to the old classic Risk 2-player game is the concept of a third neutral power. Well, in step 3, you're going to set up that neutral power. Unfortunately, this section of the setup cards is very vague about how to do this. So I've harsh ruled, or maybe that's harsh overruled, this section of the setup process. I've designed it to keep all sides balanced and expedite the setup process. First, place 4 neutral units on each of the 9 territories with a city. Next, place 6 neutral units on each territory with a special location. So that's Norway and Western Ukraine that both have satellite centers, Denmark has a naval base and Switzerland has the Swiss vault. If you drew one of these territories during the city setup phase, it's fine. You'll just need to put 6 units for the special location and then 4 units for the city. So you should have a total of 10 on these if you selected that territory. And that's it. The neutral power is ready to go. Now each of the players will set up their units. I've also harsh ruled this section because the instructions are so vague. Keeping with the spirit of Risk, I provided 2 ways to set up. There's American-style Risk and French-style Risk. In American-style Risk, each player chooses his territories in turns. So taking turns, each player will place 1 unit on an open territory until all the territories are claimed. Then in the same order, each player will place 5 units wherever they like on territories that they own. Each player will continue to take turns placing 5 units until they've placed all 27 units. Finally, each player will strategically place their capital unit. And that's it, you're done. In French-style Risk, the territories are chosen by drawing cards. So take the draw pile and remove any cards with sites on them. So that would be Norway, Switzerland, Denmark, and Western Ukraine. Now reshuffle the deck thoroughly and deal out a card to each player until no cards remain. Each player will look at their cards, and these are the territories that they start with. Each player can then place the 27 starting units onto the territories they own. After that, they will strategically place their capitals, and they're done and ready to play. So what's the difference between the two? American-style Risk is diplomacy heavy. Each player will react and change strategy based on the choices during the selection process. French-style Risk has random territory selection. You need to develop a strategy based on the hand that you're dealt. Personally, I prefer French-style Risk because it forces me to come up with new strategies for every game. I find that in American-style Risk, I end up repeating the same strategy over and over again. Okay, now that we've got the game set up, let's look at the different phases of the player turn. For those familiar with the Risk phases, this first phase is a new addition to the Risk mechanic. It's the neutral resistance phase. In this phase, all the defeated neutrals from the prior round are added up on this defeated neutrals card. You roll 2 dice, and if you can beat the number of the last unit placed, then you get to return half of those units to the battlefield. So basically, it's like a field hospital. So if you fail the roll, everyone dies and they go back in the box. This stage is just for the neutral power, though. For those familiar with Risk, Phase 2 is also new. Similar to the neutral resistance phase, every time you kill an enemy unit, you can add it to your defeated armies card, and then when you've got enough of those, you can trade them in for special abilities. Most of these special abilities allow you to do things like re-roll dice, draft 3 troops, draw cards, take another Fortify movement phase, but there are some cool ones here. One of my favorites is to incite an insurrection in the neutral territory. Basically, by trading in 6 defeated armies, you can have one of the neutral territories and the troops in that territory attack one of your enemy territories. Another neat ability is you can also use 10 defeated armies to purchase an airfield. The airfield gives you the ability to add 1 to any dice roll in a battle in that territory where the airfield sits, and also provides the support for any adjacent territory that you own, so it can be very useful. This new system adds a lot of unique strategy to balance of power. Phase 3 is the draft phase. There's a bit of accounting here, so stick with me. Essentially, in this phase, you get to add new units to your forces if you meet the following criteria. First, count all of your territories and cities and divide those by 3, and that will tell you how many units you get for that. Then you also get a unit for every capital that you own, so add those up. So in the example here, the red player has 1 capital, so he gets a unit for that, and he has 12 territories plus 3 cities, which equals 15. Divided by 3 is 5, so he gets 5 units for that, for a total of 6 units. Next, if you control any regions, you get bonuses for those, and I've highlighted them on the graphic so you can see all the different regions. So in the example you see here, the red player has the entire blue territory, which he gets 2 units for, and the orange territory when he gets 5 units for that, for a total of 7 units. The final way you can get awarded units is by turning in cards. Now, this version of Risk, along with the revised edition, uses the new star system. Each of the territory cards has either a 1-star or a 2-star on them. So as you collect cards and add them up on the star chart, you can redeem those during this phase to get the associated troops. In this example, there are 3 stars, so this player could get 4 units. It's pretty simple and makes card management a lot easier. The next phase is the attack phase, everybody's favorite. So first let's look at the board. You can only attack a territory that is adjacent to your troops. This also counts some of the island territories which you see are joined by sea lanes. Another new aspect of Risk Balance of Power is rough terrain. You'll see some of these territories have mountainous regions. What this means is the territory is naturally fortified, so if you're attacking into that territory, you can only attack. Speaking of which, let's look at the battle mechanics. For many people, this will be review. Risk uses a dice pairing system to conduct combat. Attackers can roll up to 3 dice and defenders can roll up to 2 dice. Unless there's rough terrain, then the attacker can only roll with 2 dice. When the dice is rolled, the highest numbers on each dice are paired together. The dice with the highest number wins that particular battle. Let's look at a battle and I'll show you what I mean. Here we have an example of 5 blue units attacking 4 red units. The maximum number that blue can attack with is 3 at a time, so the 2 extra units wait in reserve. On the flip side, the maximum number that can be defended with are 2, so the red player has 2 units in reserve. So let's begin. Both sides roll dice, attacker 3, defender 2. The highest numbers of dice are paired. The highest numbers in those pairs wins. You can see who won that particular battle. Each player will remove the casualties and place them on the defeated armies cards. Next, you're going to fill those open positions from the reserve forces in the back. And you're ready for the next round of battle. And that's how combat works in Risk. Finally, Phase 5 is the Fortify phase. In the first part of this phase, you can select a territory's units and move those units to another territory on the board that you control, as long as the route to that territory has your troops on it. Remember, you need to leave at least 1 unit behind in the territory, so you can't take everybody, and abandon the territory. In the second part of this phase, if you conquered an enemy territory, not a neutral territory, you can draw 1 card. The only exception here is if you've completed an objective during the turn, then you can't take a card either. And that completes the final phase of the player turn. And that about sums up Risk Balance of Power. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial, and if you're in the US and happen to get your hands on a copy of Risk Balance of Power, grab a friend and sit down and give it a shot. It's a really fun game. And with that, this is Harsh Rules. I'm Ben Harsh, and I'll see you next time.